Thank you all very much for the invite to be with you this morning. It's a real pleasure. I think I've always felt an affinity for this neck of the woods. My dad's mum lived in Carlisle, and my mum and dad practically holidayed in Gatehouse of Fleet all the time. I've holidayed myself as far down as Whithorn, so I know lots of the little nooks and crannies, not as well as I'd like to, but I'm not entirely a stranger, and I'm really pleased about that. I think I'll just start with a wee bit about my background. I think it's fair to say that I fell into politics by accident. I wasn't somebody that was at school thinking, oh, isn't this interesting? I'd love to do that one day. I was probably somebody who, when the news came on, would say to my parents, do we have to watch this again? So it took till I was in my 30s for Edinburgh Council to suggest that they were going to build luxury penthouse flats on a school playing field for me to get involved, really, in local issues. And boy, did I get involved. And I kind of say to people now, just be careful. You never know where this might take you, but it's taken me all sorts of interesting and amazing places and given me opportunities that I'd never have had. And that really started by getting involved with a group of neighbours who just thought this proposal was the wrong one. It was contrary to local, regional at the time, and national planning policy guidelines. But to cut a sort of 10-year story very, very short, we failed. The penthouse flats were there. If you've got £500,000, you might be fortunate enough to live in one. Certainly isn't the affordable housing for families that Edinburgh needs. But I think what it did was it gave me an into how the local authority was working, or rather how the local authority wasn't working. And I went along to that planning committee meeting and I sat there and I heard all the arguments for and against, and I thought, it's fine, they get it. We're going to save the playing field, but we didn't. Despite all the objections, and they were numerous, we lost, and that was my first taste of local democracy. And some of the people I was involved in, I always remember one architect saying, I just feel so sullied by this process that I don't think I can have anything to do with local government ever again. And I think that's a real tragedy. And I think that's why it's so important that we Greens get a foothold in local government and start showing people what we're about on the ground. So I wasn't a member of the Green Party when Robin Harper was elected. I joined the campaign Scotland Forward, for the double yes vote for a parliament, and for a parliament that had its tax-raising powers. So I joined that first before I joined the Greens. And then when Robin was elected, I'd been working as a registrar in a language school in Edinburgh for 10 years and enjoying it, but just thinking it was a bit of a time for a change. And I'd started to develop a bit of a newspaper letter writing habit by that stage, so I was getting more involved. Robin was elected. He advertised for 2 staff. My husband said to me, you're wasting your time, it'll be a party carve-up. and it wasn't, and I was really privileged to be given one of those 2 jobs, and for me it was just such a marvellous opportunity to learn and to meet people who'd been members of the party for a long, long time, people who were members of the party, when it was called the Ecology Party. So I was really, I think, in a very privileged position. There was this new parliament, there was this whole feeling of, wow, isn't this incredible, what are we going to do with it? And undoubtedly we've done good things with that parliament. It has meant that higher education's protected, we've got very distinctive stances on several issues, but undoubtedly I think under devolution we could have and should have achieved more. And regardless of what side anyone was on in the recent referendum campaign, I think everyone was saying that. Maybe that's why some people felt so frustrated, that was affecting the way they voted. But I think, having worked for Robin for some time, when PR was introduced at local authority level, we realised, much as PR, the voting system in the Parliament had enabled us to have the first Green parliamentarian elected in Robin Harper, PR at local authority level gave us an opportunity to get Greens into local councils, and I think that's something that is massively, massively important. I think you could transform the south of Scotland, indeed the whole of Scotland, when we start to see the increase in Green councillors that I believe is going to happen. And I think it's certainly going to happen now, given the increase in numbers. In Edinburgh we have a branch meeting every 4th Thursday. Now normally we'll have about 40 folk turn up, and we have presentations from different people, and it's usually a lively, informative meeting. But at the meeting just after the referendum, we realised that our membership had increased. And we booked a church hall on George Fourth Bridge, the Augustine United Church. It's a well-known sort of festival venue. Anyway, I was coming down George Fourth Bridge and I thought, oh, what's that queue? Must be something. Must be some hugely popular act in town. But no, there were 300 people trying to cram themselves into a room that held 200 people. And even when the balcony, you know, where the organist and things sits, even when that was full, we had 100 people overflowing. Thankfully, we hadn't cancelled the normal Thursday Bee book out, and those 100 people were taken up to our usual venue. We couldn't fit in there, they had to overspill into the library, and we ended up running 2 meetings simultaneously. So I know Patrick Harvey reported a similar experience. He'd booked some Glasgow cricket pavilion, and people were outside, you know, listening in. I don't know if they managed to have some sort of audio equipment. So it's really, I think the referendum's given us a chance to meet so many people, you know, just to get our message across, because, well, Patrick was doing all the glamorous high-profile stuff. I did get down to ITV Borders in Hawick. But, you know, I think my referendum gig took place in a lot of school halls and a lot of church halls, and it just let us, you know, meet people for the first time, and they heard what we were saying on a range of issues. And, you know, I think the evidence is clear to see. They've liked what they've heard, and they've joined the party. And not only that, so many people just developed a real interest in politics. I think I have one abiding memory, and I keep referring to this, but a young woman got up. I was speaking at a meeting at Edinburgh University, and it was an all-woman panel. And I don't know if that made a difference to her, but she stood up and she started to speak or ask a question, and then it obviously dawned on her what she was doing, and she said, I can't believe I'm standing up in a public meeting giving my opinion. You know, and she went on, she said, you know, I've really started to find my feet and my own voice in this campaign. And, you know, I did get involved. When I was getting involved in Green politics, I went to a meeting just up the road from my house, and that's when I heard a Green candidate. It was somebody called Graham Farmer. Don't know if you remember him or not. And I also remember he rushed in late. Everybody else was sitting down, and he rushed in late and he said, that's what happens when you're relying on public transport. That aside, I just liked his message. But so many people don't want to go to a normal hustings, you know, where you hear, you know, politicians debating the sometimes far too minute differences between their party manifestos. But I thought people were coming along to referendum meetings with their own manifestos, and it's been truly transformative. And the kind of jargon that I just think we need to avoid as a party. I think we need to be straight talking and make sure people understand what we're saying. But Scotland did become a participative democracy for those months. You could feel the difference, and I think I can still feel the difference. And I think this campaign leading up to the general election is going to be different. You know, look at the way the polls are going. There's a real feeling that people want to be involved. There's a feeling that they're not just going to carry on doing what they've always done before, because that hasn't resulted in any of the positive changes we need to see. So, you know, I just think we have a real opportunity again. We got a lot of attention during the referendum campaign. People are more interested, they want to hear from us, and I think we've got a duty as a party to capitalise on that, to make sure we are taking part in as many meetings as we possibly can. And I said when I was closing conference that a lot of people didn't know it then, but they were going to be standing as candidates for the party very soon. And don't poo-poo that. When I got involved in politics, I come from a very non-traditional, you know, I do not come from an outstandingly well-educated family or a background where people were involved in politics. And it was 2 women in the party then, in particular 2 women who'd come from the German Greens who were like, why don't you put yourself forward? And I was like, oh, don't be ridiculous, I know nothing. And I remember walking to the first hustings I ever took part in, and I was walking like that. what am I doing this for? But I just want to say, it does get easier. There's a huge support within the party, really good support. We have got better. You know, I know some of our recent candidates, like Zara Kixon, I was aware that she was going along and other party members were acting as sort of part of a panel grilling her. You know, it's just a case of, you know, it's like whatever you do in your daily life, you've got better and better at it because you do it all the time. But the support is there within the party. Our structures are better than they've ever been. But think about the new membership we've got. We've now got experiences and expertise within this party that we don't even know about yet. You know, and we are going to get better and better at what we do. And I've been really the people I've met, since the membership has grown, have sort of inspired me. I think we have huge opportunities now to make sure that we're heading towards being at least part of coalitions in local authorities across Scotland. So when I was first elected in Edinburgh, there was 3 of us in 2007. There are now 6 Green councillors in Edinburgh, and I can honestly see that could increase to 12, because we now have the numbers to do the work. I think before I was elected as a councillor, we delivered 70,000 leaflets in the ward that I was elected for, Meadows and Morningside, within a few months. I actually felt like that I lived in a tenement stair. Probably very fit at the time. But think about the numbers we've got. People who can knock on doors, talk to your neighbours, deliver leaflets, have street stalls. It's all changed. Because we have more membership, we have a bit more finance as well, which is really, really helpful, because we don't have, Lord Sainsbury or anyone else saying, here you are, have £500,000. But that gives us freedom too, because when everyone else is standing back saying, oh, isn't it a tragedy that yet another supermarket is going to lead to the closure of all these local shops? Well, we can still be that voice of reason. So there are benefits to not having that sponsor, but it would be nice if some very ethical, lovely person came along and wanted to donate. And we do make a difference. I suppose, the Greens on the councils have campaigned against local school closures. They've made a real difference in making sure that nobody is evicted through bedroom tax arrears. We've got involved in lots of issues which some folk mistakenly still don't see as core Green issues. We're involved in any issue that promotes social or environmental justice. We really have been trying to do as much as we possibly can, and now that we have so many more people, I think we can do much more. I think in Parliament I sit on the Economy, Energy and Tourism Committee. I went into the Scotland Bill Committee just after I was elected, and I'm shortly going to come off the Economy, Energy and Tourism Committee because Patrick is taking part in the Smith Commission. The Referendum Bill Committee that he sits on is going to scrutinise the work of the Smith Commission. So to avoid him scrutinising his own work, we're going to switch committees. I suppose that's what I'm getting round to saying. But I've really enjoyed my time on the Economy, Energy and Tourism Committee. We've looked at things like the National Planning Framework. I pushed an amendment asking for buffer zones between fracking, infrastructure and communities. And I got very, very excited for about 5 minutes because it went to a 4-4 split in the committee. But the convener cast his vote against it. But what was interesting that day, an SNP member and 2 Labour members voted with me. So this is an issue that we can make inroads in. I'm absolutely certain of that. I don't think the government will know what's hit it when they first say, OK, we're going to give planning permission for this in a Scottish community. And Australia have been massively successful in forcing Dart Energy out of Australia. They had this campaign called Locked Gate Policy, and basically local communities just made their area so hostile to the development in terms of campaigning, people blockading entries, that Dart just said, that's it, we give up. And I think Australia did introduce a buffer zone. I'm hopeful that can happen. And although David Cameron's government can give licences to look at what's happening under your house, the Scottish Government have got a lot of power under planning, and I don't think they're using that as effectively as they might be yet. I led a debate in Parliament too where we asked for the Scottish Government, we asked for a moratorium on fracking. So we just said, right, let's just stop this now, but we didn't get any support. We just wanted to sort of crystallise the difference between what Greens think and what the others think. And you might get it, but aren't the Greens just part of the SNP? Well, actually, no, we're so clearly not. We don't think fracking's a good idea. We understand that most of the fossil fuels we have are unburnable. We want to see transport justice. We want to see more than 2%, it's not even 2%, of the transport budget spent on walking and cycling. Loads of Scots can't afford a car, don't want to have access to a car. So we want to see real investment in public transport, walking and cycling. We don't support their fantastic idea of a cut to corporation tax. What we would like to see is some corporations paying tax. So we're different in so many ways. I'm going to wind up now and just take any questions that you might have, but I'm just really, really grateful to you all for being here, for considering joining the Greens. I mean, I know lots of people, friends and family, who have joined political parties. It tends to be one of 2 political parties. I'm not hearing of too many joining other political parties, but I just think it's great, whatever party people want to join, the fact that they're getting involved and coming along to meetings like this. And I said this at council too, I think, let's very quickly get away from old members and new members. We're all just members, and let's just work together and take this party forward. Thank you.